Hiphop in your Smoel, in your Smoel, hiphop in your Smoel.
Well, I think that my albums have been without intending to do it this way, my albums have been a progression in terms of hearing a person develop, because my music's so personal. It comes from my life. It comes from all of the major things that are going on in my life end up being the major things on my albums. And so, you know, the first album, you hear me struggling to literally survive, literally have enough money to eat and feed my family, live, you know. And so as that started to, I put that album out. I didn't know if anybody was ever really going to hear it, but people were really good to me, really kind to me. And so I was able to support my family and feed myself and all these things. And then I started realizing that once my immediate day-to-day physical needs were met, I started realizing that my life wasn't set up in a way that allowed my soul to fully express itself and be who I was. And so it was time for me to change some of the structures in my life. I was married when I was really young, when I was 17. You know, a number of other things that were going on at that time. So me and my son left that situation. It was very ugly. It was violent and scary. And so we left that situation and we were homeless together for a while. Homeless meaning that we didn't have our own space. Some people are really homeless, like they sleep outside. I had great friends that wouldn't let me get that bad, you know what I mean? So I slept on floors and couches and things like that. But it was my son and I, he was, you know, 2 and 3 years old at this time. And so we together rebuilt our whole family structure, our whole life together. And so my second album, Undisputed Truth, is about that period of me now being able to fulfill my immediate physical needs, but really wanted to build a life that fed me as a human being, as a person. And then that happened, and you know, with that album gave me a lot of space to do that. And then by the time that it became time to go back in the studio for us, I was in a place where, in terms of all of the important aspects of life, I was pretty happy. I was doing well. You know what I mean? I bought a house and you know, just I've had a lot of happiness and it's been on a really good, positive upswing. It takes a lot of work, but I love my work even. So, you know, even I put an album out and I spent that year touring 9 or 10 or 11 months out of that year. But even that is joy, you know what I mean? I wrote all these stories on us from the position of a person that's in a relationship with these people. So it also opened it up for me to talk about a lot of issues that have always been part of my immediate reality, but that I'm not the key player in the story. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I've never sold drugs, I've never used drugs, but my family members have, you know what I mean? I've lost loved ones that died, and I've had, you know, addicts in my family, and you know, my life has been touched by slavery and rape and homophobia. Even though I'm not the specific victim of those things, people I love are, and since our lives are connected, I'm affected through them.
Let me grab back to an interview that you did a while back, a few months ago, with Hiphop Lives. Mm-hmm. In that interview, you said that you celebrate life every day, that you're a very positive person. Mm-hmm. But when we look at the albums that you've done, the subjects that you touch on are filled with pain and frustration. Mm-hmm. How do you explain that contradiction in that way?
Because I'm a blues person. It's the blues. The blues is, you know, I've been reading a lot of a philosopher and teacher named Cornel West. Mm-hmm. And he explains himself as a blues philosopher, with the idea of being that when, you know, the blues is a way of being, without having a choice, being up close and intimate with pain and with tragedy, with death, heartbreak, anguish, suffering, struggle. But by singing it, you turn that pain into something that you can celebrate. And then your happiness is true happiness, because without, you know, these are, I mean, all of us on this earth are going to die. All of us are born with a death sentence on this earth. We have a limited time to be in space in space and time, on this earth, in this existence. All of us know we're going to die, and so the more in touch we are with the scary side of life, and the more we work it out and exercise it, that's where true hope comes from. I'm not interested in just, blind optimism, just being blind. Well, you gotta just think it's gonna be okay. No, I'm not interested in that. I want to fully understand where my heartache and my anguish is coming from. I know that I've been writing songs lately about, like we were talking about, stories that aren't necessarily mine. And I just wrote a song recently about what it means to cheat on somebody that you love in a relationship, and the way that the effect that it has, and really examining it. And it's interesting because it's kind of, I wrote it from a first person point of view, and I think that my listeners are so used to hearing me tell my stories that they're gonna hear that and be like, oh, Ali cheated on this girl,
Yeah.
And that hasn't happened, but I wrote that song that way because it felt right to do at the time. So there are a lot of issues that I still haven't been able to work on. But when I know them, when I realize exactly what they are, that's when the song comes out.
They also have a nickname for you, or at least one of them, which is the street preacher. Is that one that you embrace? How do you feel about that name?
I feel two ways. Initially a fan gave me that name, and I've heard that before. Like you're a preacher, you're like a pastor, you're like a minister, whatever. And when I first heard it, when she first told it to me, I named my album, the Us album was going to be called The Street Preacher, because I was looking at both of those words in the real sense of what they are. So both street and preacher, the original real meaning of them, I embrace. But the majority of people have different, newer meanings now that I don't like. A preacher initially is somebody who receives a calling or feels a calling in their soul to share what they are so thankful to know. That somewhere along life, something in life taught us something that freed us and allowed us to be who we are and allowed us to get a better footing and a better understanding of life. And that gratitude that we have for that thing makes us want to share it with everybody. That's what a true preacher is. But preachers come to be known as somebody who is on their moral high horse, and they tell you what you're supposed to do and everything that's wrong with you. They're very self-righteous, ego-driven, and it's all about them being glorified. So I've moved away from that. And then the idea of street, the real streets are the real people that live in these neighborhoods, real folks. A really small fraction, and maybe you could argue that it's growing, and it has grown in my generation. Confuse street with being gangster, or with being a pimp, or being involved in the street economy. You know what I mean? And so for me to say street, what I meant was somebody that's out with the real folks, the real people, and I was going to tell the real stories of these real people. But nowadays you say street, you mean you're basically, you take Jay-Z's life story and you pretend that it's yours.
Yeah.
I used to make a lot of money selling crack. Now I rap now because I'm trying to chill out on that. You know what I mean? Please. That's true of Jay-Z, and it's maybe true of 8 other rappers in the world. And the rest of us are just fucking music dorks. And music dorks just like me. I know a music nerd when I see one.